Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another exciting Australian Indian Radio's Facebook Daily Live Updates. And it's another wonderful day out there today. Not very bright, but let's take a very quick look at what the weather's going to be doing for us today. As we know, lately it's been very cool, but it's not been bitterly cold as well. So it's been wonderful to see the weather. So the rest of Thursday is going to be the maximum we'll reach is 18, which is a little bit cooler than the previous days. But sometimes, you know what it is, even though the temperature might be lower, but it doesn't feel that cold. The cold or the chill factor, that's what you talk about. Sometimes that makes a difference, and the wind as well. That makes a difference. So some days it might be, a couple of degrees more, but it feels colder. But today, the maximum will be 18, and there'll be rain at times, possible rain, which is from 8 till about 15 millimeters. High cloudy, the chance of showers in the rain at most likely from the morning, and there'll be light winds. Fire danger is moderate, and sun protection is recommended from now till about 1:30. The UV index, even though it's a little bit cloudy out there, is at 4, which means protection is needed. But I've always said that protection is always needed. Looking at these COVID numbers, so Queensland 1,073, recovery is 1,062, death at 16. Now Australia-wide, the confirmed cases is 12,896. and 8,653 recovery and 128 deaths. Worldwide, as today we were talking about that we're etching our way to 15 million. Well, guess what? We have reached that 15 million mark. And recovery, which is the better part, is 8.5 million and 618,000 meaning deaths recorded. So that is the update on the COVID situation. So, it is looking pretty grim. It is not looking very good. And we will look at individual states and everywhere just in a minute. But here's an update on the COVID-19 cases.
There's a lot of information in that Daniel Andrews presser that went for close to 80 minutes. So let's just take you very quickly to the top line figures, and then we can drill into it a little bit. I'm actually going to take you to Australia's curve because with just Victoria's numbers today, today is the single, that is not the correct number, we're at more than 484, but today we have the single worst day in this pandemic in the infection rate to date. So Victoria's numbers alone now exceed all of the 8 states and territories numbers from the peak of the first wave of this pandemic. That's how bad this has gotten. And the trend is continuing to go up. 484 cases today means that Victoria is now average on a 7-day basis, more than 350 cases every day. And it may be that we were seeing some slowing in the growth, if you like. It may well be that that's sort of stopped or even sped up again slightly in the last few days. The tone of the government today, it was pretty clear to me that while the numbers are going up, the government, while there are some pretty big chinks in the armour of the state's defences, are expected to continue to go up, and these issues need to be resolved and tightened. What were the big issues that Daniel Andrews outlined? Well, one, a whole series of issues with the self-isolation regime and people following the guidelines around self-isolation. 90% of people feeling sick, but before they're getting tested, continuing to go out into the world, and more than half of people after getting a test swab still not isolating until they get their test result. That's a big problem. That means the virus is free to spread if that person is positive. Those chains of transmission have not been stopped in their tracks. There are lots of reasons for that. One of the issues seems to be that the people in this camp tend to be people in insecure work, casual work, people who can't afford to take a few days off work to self-isolate while they're waiting for a test result. And anecdotally, this is very much anecdata rather than a comprehensive data set, but it does seem like testing times in Victoria are blowing out. I've been hearing from lots of people who are waiting 3, 4, 5, even 7 days to get test results when that wasn't the case, when there was when there were fewer tests being done, and that is an issue. You sort of understand why someone who would have to take a week off work to get a test, wait for a test result, might be cautious about doing that. There is hardship money in Victoria, but not everyone is eligible, and people that just develop symptoms without being a known close contact of a case aren't eligible for that money at the moment, and the Premier suggested that might be broadened, the eligibility for that might be broadened. The other issue we've got in Victoria, which wasn't really addressed today, is that there is a big backlog in the number of tests under investigation. It seems pretty clear that contact tracing and public health teams are overwhelmed. Before today's update, we had 1,900 cases still under investigation, and that has shot up. This backlog is getting very, very long. I expect there will be a few more hundred added to this. We'll see well more than 2,000 cases under investigation by the end of the day. And not having that information about where infections have been acquired makes it harder to target interventions and do things to try and stop the spread on a localised basis. It makes it more likely that we'll need to see citywide restrictions, new rules that apply to everyone in Melbourne, because we just don't know enough about where the virus is spreading. In the meantime, hospitalisations still going up. We now have 205 people in hospital with COVID-19 in Victoria. That is and continuing to rise. 400 cases today, nearly 500 cases today, means this will indefinitely keep rising, and we're seeing very rapid growth as well in aged care environments where the fatality rate is very high indeed.
Okay, so what's happening in the rest of the country?
So we've got one new case in Queensland. That's in an ADF returned service member who is now isolating. And then in New South Wales, as we've been hearing, 16 new cases, 15 of them local transmission, all of them linked to known clusters, which is a good thing. Some of the clusters, though, are getting quite big, including the Thai Rock restaurant at Wetherill Park cluster. That includes 2 parishioners at the Our Lady of Lebanon Cathedral. There are 3 masses and a funeral that happened between 5 and 7 days ago, where people have been asked to self-isolate and await and get tested and watch for any symptoms. That cluster's now at 37. There are potentially hundreds of contacts there that are now isolating. But as we've seen, just heard in Victoria, the people are not tending to follow those isolation guidelines. If it's not happening in Victoria, where there is hardship money available, who's to say it's happening at a great degree in New South Wales as well?
And especially on that hardship money, as we know, many people have complained that, they've tried to call that number and they can't just get through. So someone did a test run yesterday just to find out about that. And the way it's all been managed, so if you look at that curve going right up again, that is not a very good sign. And we've seen a small rise in New South Wales. It's not big, but even then it is on the rise. So that is not very good. Queensland, as was reported, that there was 1 new case a few days back. That was an Air Defence Force guy who had returned. So it's no local cases that have been in here. So, but just on travellers, here's what our Prime Minister had to say.
There will be capacity for people to return to Australia, as there has been now for many months. And so there will be continuing access to Australia, but the number of available positions on flights will be less. And I don't think that is surprising or unreasonable in the circumstances that we find ourselves in. We have to put the national interests first and the health of Australia first and Australians, and that's the basis of the decision that we've taken.
So Cabinet has met this morning, and we're announcing today that there will be a cost put on those repatriated Australian returned travellers. What we know is that the Prime Minister has said since March of this year, Australians overseas should get back. Now, we have made that return free of charge to this point in time, but as of Saturday morning, there will be a $3,000 charge for the first individual. A partner will be a further $1,000 and children will be $500 each. So these new charges will come into effect as of Saturday morning. Can I just say we are still keen to assist with the National Repatriation Program, but taxpayers will not be footing the bill going forward.
Airlines are doing it incredibly tough at present right now. We need to be mindful that the cost of tickets is expensive for the very few flights that are available, and I know that puts people in tough circumstances right now. But equally, as the Premier said, The warning has been there for months now, encouraging people to come home. If you want to come back, you should come back, and if you wanted to come back, you should have already come back in most circumstances.
Aussies and Australian residents overseas have had 3 or 4 months to think about what they want to do. They've had 3 or 4 months to make decisions about what is best for them. And we're even hearing anecdotal stories about people making repeat visits, coming back home, then going back and coming back in at free cost.
And that is just not so on that people are using the system. And so I think it is quite rightful that the levies are being put in place to safeguard the interest of everyone. And people always abusing that system as well. Well, right now, the big news that is going to be happening today, and we'll bring that analysis tomorrow, is the national budget. And so for the first time ever, we are going to be in a very, very big deficit, worse than the World War II one. So here's a report on what it might look like. But don't forget that this news says that these figures will come out today. So when he refers to that, just be mindful of that.
Now, before we go any further, before I take any more calls, we've got some information for you on tomorrow's economic and fiscal update from Josh Frydenberg. The government has just dropped some of the information that will be applied to tomorrow's update. It is eye-watering, as he said to Neil Mitchell today. In fact, it's historic, but for all the wrong reasons. We were told to brace for eye-watering figures. They weren't kidding. The impact of the measures the government has implemented in response to the pandemic, together with a deterioration in revenue and increased payments, will see the budget record the largest deficit since the Second World War. Since the Second World War. Can you believe that? History in the making. A huge impact comes from the reintroduction of restrictions in Victoria in response to the second wave. It'll reduce national real GDP growth by around $3.3 billion, or 3/4 of a percentage point in the September quarter 2020. This holds back the whole of Australia and our recovery from this pandemic recession. Now, the Treasurer has described this as a once-in-a-century shock, and he's not wrong. And you can tune in to Sky News tomorrow from 11 a.m. for complete live coverage of the government's economic update. Sky News will bring you the analysis and reaction as the true cost of coronavirus to the bottom line is revealed. But can I just give you one figure that has come forward? On revenue alone, company tax receipts are expected to fall by more than $25 billion over this financial year and last financial year. This includes a decline of $13.2 billion in 2019-20, $12.1 billion in 2020-2021. So don't get too excited about what's happening next year. And if you go way back to 2018-19, instead of $12.1 billion, the company tax receipts then were $93.7 billion. That gives you an idea, a statistical idea of how far we've stepped back from our ability to take.
And as we know, as has been mentioned, that report will come out today. And I know there's a lot of uneasiness and there's a lot of uncertainty within a lot of the business community, and no one is sure as to what is going to happen and what the future holds. As we know, this is not the first time ever that a economic recession is taking place. Always there have been smart, innovative business people who have survived and who have made, who have done better than others in those kind of circumstances. You just need to be able to adapt. But government-wise, it is wonderful that they had the resources that they had to get us through these times. Otherwise, the story would have been very, very different had the JobKeeper and JobSeeker not come in. So it is, today is everyone will be following that news and trying to find out what exactly is going to happen. Well, they say everything changes and many changes are for the better. So one of the change for the better is the revival of White Ribbon. And as you know, I've been involved with White Ribbon for quite some time. And last night was a meeting of the White Ribbon Southside Committee, newly formed. And in the photo you can see Brad, who will be the chief director. Here it is. He's posting that on Facebook together with Matt there and our Gold Coast team there as well. So Queensland will be led once again by Chu Hing Chen. You can see him there, and as the chair, and I will be the vice chair to him. And you can see that Brad is there as well. And we've got good support from many of the community ones, and everyone's coming together in revival. The full report we will bring, and we'll try and bring Brad on this show here as well. And we'll talk about what the new look White Ribbon would look like, what are some of the things that we will still continue to do, what will change, especially the ambassador and advocate program will be slightly different. We will be merging those into one. The schools program will remain, the workplace program so will all still remain, and any accreditation that is had been signed up before will still be honoured, and we will be delivering those as well. See, but there will be a lot that will be changing. It's in the early days of the revival and of the rebirth, but it is. The team is very good, so there's very good people who have come back on board to keep this wonderful cause moving forward, the cause that is much needed out there in the community. Well, ladies and gentlemen, right now let's take a very quick commercial break.
ग्लोबनेट रियलिटी 1989 से लेकर अब तक का विश्वसनीय और माननीय ब्रिस्बेन का रियल एस्टेट एजेंट है। उषा चंद्रा, जो कि ग्लोबनेट की डायरेक्टर है, अपने ग्राहकों को ईमानदार और एथिक सर्विसेज देती हैं। अगर आप ब्रिस्बेन की प्रॉपर्टी में पूंजी लगाना चाहते हैं और आप चाहते हैं कि आपकी प्रॉपर्टी को प्रोफेशनली मैनेज किया जाए, तो आप आज ही कांटेक्ट कीजिए उषा चंद्रा को। लैंडलाइन नंबर है 38654466 और मोबाइल नंबर है 0419775416। और आप प्रॉपर्टी की अधिक जानकारी और करंट अपडेट्स के लिए हमारी वेबसाइट पे लॉगिन कर सकते हैं। हमारी वेबसाइट है www.globenetreality.com.au। ग्लोबनेट रियलिटी आपका अपना लोकल रियल एस्टेट एजेंट है। हमारा पता है ग्लोबनेट रियलिटी, शॉप नंबर 5, 2281 सैंडगेट रोड, बुंदल, क्वींसलैंड। ग्लोबनेट रियलिटी, रियल एस्टेट इज आवर वर्ल्ड।
And it definitely is the world. Ladies and gentlemen, right now let's move on to news in brief, and let's see what's happening around the world. Well, first up, President Trump says that Chinese consulate was banning documents. So Donald Trump has refused to rule out closing more Chinese embassies, saying that the Houston consulate might not be the only Chinese diplomatic post that is being evicted. Let's see what he has to say.
Mr. President, are you looking at closing further Chinese embassies in the United States? And did you ask Ambassador Woody Johnson to bring the British Open to your Turnberry property in Scotland?
No, I never spoke to Woody Johnson about that, about Turnberry. Turnberry is a highly respected course, as you know, one of the best in the world. And I read a story about it today, and I never spoke to Woody Johnson about doing that. No. As far as closing additional embassies, it's always possible. You see what's going on. We thought there was a fire in the one that we did close, and everybody said there's a fire, and I guess they were burning documents or burning papers, and I wonder what that's all about.
And it is something to wonder about the fires that he was talking about. But looking at a fire of a different kind, we go to southeastern France, where two children jumped from apartment to escape fire. And as you can see, very, very terrific situations there. You'll see the young toddler, hanging off the side, and then someone lets go, and he jumps right down there. So two children jumped from apartments to escape fire in southern eastern France. The two brothers, aged 3 and 10, were caught by onlookers as they jumped down from their burning apartment. These are the live videos that have been captured from there. What a terrific catch there from the onlookers, and it is wonderful to see that they were there right on the time. Now, U.S. orders China to close its Houston consulate, as we have heard from the president, but let's see what transpired and what was the results. So the chief correspondent Phil Williams says that relations between the United States and China have deteriorated significantly since the outbreak of coronavirus in Wuhan. So let's hear from him.
Well, they say clearly that they've been bad actors. Chinese government, through their embassies, have been through the consulates, have been bad actors. That they've been stealing intellectual property, and that this particular consulate here in Houston was one of those centres that gathered that information and then gave China a distinct commercial advantage over many, well, basically took the intellectual property and turned it to their advantage against American interests. So this is part of that ramping up of this deterioration of this relationship. It's going from bad to worse at a very rapid rate, and at the same time, you've got military exercises involving Australian ships and Americans and the Indian Navy in the South China Sea. So there is a great deal of concern that there's so many pressure points and you only need one accident and things can get out of control. It certainly suits the president to have China to criticise, to blame for some of the things that have gone wrong in the country economically, for the loss of jobs, particularly in manufacturing, and now, of course, for the flu. He calls it the Wuhan flu or the China flu, the COVID-19, and he does not miss an opportunity to blame people for that, blame the Chinese for that spread around the world.
And as we know that he doesn't mince his words, and he says what comes there. Now, for the next story, it is a good story. When you look at Paralympians, paraplegics, and the things that they have been able to do and what they have been able to achieve. Now, in this interview, both, I'll leave it up to you to decide, but Dylan Alcott says that the social aspect of the sport has changed his life. The 6-time Australian Open champion says he hated the person that he was before the sport that he engaged in. Here's the report.
When did sport change your world? I know it changed your world. When did it hit you and how?
I tell you what sport changed my life. It wasn't because I won a gold medal. It was when I first played tennis. I went to a tennis tournament, the Thaguna Open outside of Albury, right? I went with my doubles partner Heath. We used to play a bit together. I got there. I would have been 11 or 12, super fat, like I was obese. My chair was like this. And I tell you the craziest part about that tennis tournament, I'd never seen someone in a wheelchair drive a car. They were all driving. I'd never seen someone in a wheelchair like me and may have a wife who wasn't. I was like, hang on, are they together? Like, I didn't know that world. That's what I learned the most, the social aspect of sport. If I could take away all the gold medals and everything, that was the biggest thing that sport has given me, is, I guess, that belonging into a community, but also being proud of who I was. And it just so happened I was good at it, you know what I mean? But that element of it was epic for me when I was young. And then it gave me a purpose, to get fit, to have a goal. I'd never had a goal before, I was just sitting home eating Doritos, not wanting to go to school because I felt like I was that spastic that I was getting called. You know what I mean? And it gave me that avenue. And then I got fitter. You get fitter. You get attention off the opposite sex. You look better. Sport just started me on a I guess, trajectory where I am today. And we would not be talking right now if I wasn't playing sport. Not because I didn't even know if I'd be here. Like, I cannot stress how much I hated the person that I was and the hole that I was in. And, like, I don't know what I would be doing if I'd be here at all. So.
And you brought me to a moment where I saw wheelchair racing for the first time, and it was a guy with a good-looking partner,
Mate.
And he did drive, and he walked over to me and he said, get rid of those handles off the back of the chair,
Yeah.
get rid of those brakes, you push yourself always, and you choose when you stop.
Yeah.
No one else, not the brake.
People would not expect that answer, would they? They'd be
No.
like, oh, it's because you want to go mainly play Rod Laver Arena. It wasn't that. And to any person watching this with a disability or not, but in particular disability, get out there and have a crack and that, because the health benefits are known, but the social aspect of it is special. It's a special community to be part of. And I feel privileged to be a part of it, and you know, I guess now one of the people leading it, it really means a lot to me, and
such inspiring story. You know, when you look at people, there are many people who say this can't be done, that can't be done because, you know, of my disability. Turn your disability into the ability and go out and do things. And, you know, there are many people who always keep saying this can't be done and that can't be done. You try, and there's so many good things out there, and people of all different kinds have done this kind of thing. So, you know, it's wonderful to hear that story. There's a second part to that story as well, which we will bring to you another time. Right now, we will go to Victoria, where the Premier Daniel Andrews is making the report.
First things first, there are 6,739 cases of coronavirus in Victoria. That's 484 new cases. That number may change tomorrow. Obviously, I think there's about 30 that have come off from yesterday's total in that process that we go through each night. 97 of those 484 are connected to known and contained outbreaks. 387 of those are under investigation. There are now 44 Victorians who have passed away as a result of this virus. That is 2 further deaths overnight. 2 males in their 90s. Connected with aged care settings. I will again take this opportunity to send our best wishes to their loved ones, their friends and family. This will be a very challenging, very sad time for them, and we send our love and best wishes to them. There are 205 Victorians in hospital, 40 of whom are receiving intensive care. The total number of active cases is some 3,408. To give you a metro versus regional breakdown of that, that's 3,305 in Metro Melbourne and Mitchell Shire, and 103 with 8 more today in regional Victoria. We've done 1,385,964 tests with 24,726 yesterday.
So that's the latest report there. Well, yesterday, once again, we've said final goodbye to the 747s. After almost 50 years of service, Qantas has farewelled its last 747 jumbo jet, with the Queen of the Skies to be retired from the airline's fleet as it flew off to LA. And the last news is from New Zealand, and the Prime Minister is not very happy.
Over the course of the conversation with the Minister, it became clear to me that his position as a Minister was untenable. I advised him of that at that time. The Minister has shown a lack of judgment over a period of 12 months. In undertaking this relationship, he has opened himself up to accusations of improperly using his office. He has not modelled the behaviour I expect as a Minister that is in charge of setting a standard at culture as Minister for Workplace Relations and Safety. His actions have ultimately led me to lose my confidence in him as a Minister.
A very tough
The Minister takes full responsibility.
A very tough decision that she had to make there, but it is wonderful to see that you know, she is making those kind of decisions and taking a decisive action where it's needed and what she needs to do, and that she has been able to do that and maintain that. So, you know, it is wonderful to see that she has put her foot down and held to the great work that she has always been doing out there and what she's been applauded for. And now to the markets.
On to finance now, and the Australian dollar has hit its highest level for more than a year, while the local share market went into reverse. Here's Alan Kohler.
The Aussie dollar has jumped a cent to 71.4 US cents, and it's also at 62 euro cents and 56 British pence. Today's rise caps a few big weeks for the Australian dollar, almost entirely because the US dollar is falling. And that's largely an inverse correlation with the rising number of coronavirus cases in the United States. Traders and economists are getting very worried about the prospects for the American economy, and the US dollar probably has further to fall. Commodities all went up because they're expressed in US dollars, which went down. And silver absolutely took off because of a sudden burst of interest in its use in solar panels.
So the Australian dollar is doing quite well after a while. It is that's a very good news. And other good news is that now with everything that's happening around us, that there's more talk about making things right here in Australia. So very soon, Australian made will be a very proud brand name on most of the things.
It was the proud boast from the manufacturing sector, once the country's biggest employer. That base has shrunk dramatically, with Australia now coming a distant last compared to OECD nations like Ireland. But local demand for Australian-made is on the up, as international COVID-19 shutdowns open up new opportunities for efficient niche manufacturers. Rachel Papazoni reports.
So that would be wonderful to see that there's a lot more things made locally. And as we said before, the biggest drawback so far has been the cost of production being very high in Australia. And if there is government assistance and factories are set up and industries are set up, and if we start manufacturing here, that would be a very, very good news in moving forward. So ladies and gentlemen, before we finish off the segment for today, a very quick look at the upcoming events. Online Hindu Dharma classes for children. And I'd like to thank Samarpan Meditation for that wonderful discourse that was held on Australian Indian Radio yesterday. And there were so many people who tuned in to that wonderful discourse. So, if you're looking at Samarpan Meditation or other programs that are happening on Australian Indian Radio, there's so many different platforms that you can tune into and listen via. There's so many wonderful programs being presented by a lot of our wonderful presenters. And there's everything for someone, for something for everyone throughout the day, throughout the night. And if there's anything that you'd like to see on the program, please do contact us. So as we know, the radio runs 24/7. The online platform allows you to listen to it from wherever you are in this world. And you can tune in via so many different platforms. You choose the platform that you'd like to listen via. Many people have it set up on their smart TVs these days because, Wi-Fi remains on throughout the day. And there's Wi-Fi available in many of the council parks, buses, trains, and everywhere. So, there's no reason not to listen to that. There's wonderful programs that happen there, and so many of our presenters present beautiful and very nice programs on there as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for me in this segment. Until the next segment is goodbye, but don't forget that the key things is the new budget things and the figures that will come out later today. We will look at that and we'll analyze that in tomorrow's show. So until next time, be good and stay safe.